Okay, we're going to cover another maneuver. This one is the power off stall. So the power off stall is the landing stall. So you're going to simulate like you're coming into land in landing configuration, and you will induce a stall and then have to recover from it with the power out, just like you flared too high on landing. So first of all, this is once again a high altitude maneuver. So we're going to keep it above 1,500 feet above ground level, and that is the minimum. So on this one, since we're simulating like we're coming into land, there's an element that you will lose some altitude for sure. So make sure you have enough space that you can recover and everything before 1,500 AGL. So think about that. Pick an appropriate altitude that makes sense for the area. Clear the area. Once again, we're going to concentrate pretty hard on these stalls, so make sure it's very clear of traffic, airspace, or anything that you want to avoid. Check your engine real quick before you start. Make sure there's no abnormalities going on. So step one, when we're going from cruise, is we need to slow down and get into landing configuration. So much like we're coming into land, we are going to throttle back to 1,500 RPM. And this is the same that we do on a lot of these other maneuvers as well. As we throttle back, instead of just letting the nose down, obviously we're going to do the same thing like slow flight and the power on stall. We're going to slowly increase that back pressure so we don't lose altitude. And while we're doing that, we'll drop all of our flaps and get into landing configuration. And so we can do all that without losing or gaining altitude. And then once we get all of it in, we are going to enter a stabilized descent. So you're going to lower the nose just like it would look on coming into land. So we usually would do a stabilized descent around 60 knots in both these 172s. And as we're doing a stabilized descent, you don't have to like lose 1,000 feet stabilized. Once you are established and it looks like final, that's fine. You can just call it out, I'm stabilized. And then you will go ahead and throttle back and simulate like you're flaring. So when you throttle back and you start pitching up, you're going to start seeing and hearing the warning signs. So once again, you are going to see a high angle of attack. You're going to see your nose above the horizon. You're going to see the airspeed cranking on down low right there. Bottom of the wide arc even. And you're going to start to hear the stall warning horn when you get close. You might even feel some controls buffeting as it gets near. And then when the stall actually does break, so you're going to continue pitching up till the stall actually breaks. If you don't pitch up enough, what you can be is in the controlled sink where it's basically stalled. We don't really want to do that except to recognize, hey, if a stall is happening, even though it didn't make a break, it was just sinking, you can recover from that. But typically we'll go to a full break. I like teaching it this way just so people know what the worst case scenario looks like. When the break happens, you will have no power pitching up, and all of a sudden the airflow around the wings will stop producing lift. It's going to separate off the top of the wings, and when that happens, the nose will come down. And on this one, we have zero power. So the nose dips down fairly aggressively. I mean, I say aggressively. It dips down further than the power on stall. So when that happens, it's rolling past the critical angle of attack. So usually it kind of comes out of stall a little bit by itself. But what you can do to help it is lower the nose with the elevator. So dip the nose down and then go full power with the throttle. You'll have your carb on, so you want to take that off too. But as you go full power and lower the nose, you're going to get speed picking up, and then your control surfaces will be good, and your elevator will be effective. And so after you've broken the stall and you got some airflow going on, you want to level it off and bring your flaps to 20 just before I should back up. It's full power, nose down, flaps to 20 right away. Because with that much drag, if you got 30 or 40, it's really hard to get out of the stall quickly. It's just much faster technique to bring it up to 20 right from the start. So as we get enough speed and we're up to 20 degrees of flaps, we got 55 going, we can start leveling off with that pitch because we don't want to lose any more altitude than we have to. So we're kind of leveling off, and then we slowly start establishing a slight climb. And slight climb, but yet accelerating a little. As we get a little more speed, we can bring the flaps up to 10, and then keep positive rate of climb, keep your speed coming up, and as it gets a little faster, you can go flaps to 0, and then you're done. Common errors would be like after a stall that you just put the flaps all the way to 0, and when you do that, you're going to lose so much lift from what the flaps were that the aircraft will sink longer. So you don't want to do that. Do it in increments. Another thing could be if you're uncoordinated, and it could stall and dip a wing a little bit, and that's always more to do. And another problem you could have is after you recover and you've initially broken the stall, you got power and the pitch is down, you got airflow, and then you inadvertently pitch up too much and get into a secondary stall. So there's kind of a fine line that you're walking as you're kind of getting out of that stalled state, that you don't want to pitch up again to get to that critical angle where the aircraft wants to stall again. Another thing that I've seen is that when you go from no power to full power, people will do that really fast, and sometimes that can cause an engine to stumble just a little bit because both these aircraft are carbureted. So what you have is you can get a stumble because the accelerator pump maybe gave it too much gas, so it's a slightly flooded state if you went too fast. So we do want to give it power and pitch the nose down. However, we don't want to give it so fast, like if we're talking idle to full throttle, like instantly, that's a little too fast. But if it's like a smooth, 1-2 count and it's in all the way, you will recover much faster. That'll vary a little bit on what aircraft you use based on how the carburetor works and which carburetor's in it. And so, but I've seen that before where people just go a little too fast and then the engine stumbles a little. They still recover and the engine catches back up once it's past that initial boost of the accelerator pump. But stalls are definitely not something that you need to be afraid of. There's something that you want to have knowledge of, experience in the aircraft with someone who has experience, because if you're coordinated doing your stalls, they're very uneventful, and it's just good to know how to recognize all these warning signs so that you won't get yourself into trouble sometime later by yourself. So I think common misconceptions from when you're just starting training is like when a stall happens, like the airplane will drop. And what it turns into when it stalls is the nose comes down, but it's still gliding. You're not descending straight down. You're still going forward. So anyways, practice these with your instructor. I think you'll do great. And in the end, I think most people, the fear goes away after they practice them with someone that has experience. So not something to be afraid of, but something good to practice. So good luck with them.